morning. Good morning. Welcome to Sunday morning Transplant Coffee Talk. I am your host, Steve Belcher. We have an exciting show today. This is part two of a two-part series with Don P. Morman from Jamaica, Queens, New York. How you doing this morning, Don?
I'm doing great, thank God. It's a beautiful Sunday morning. It's a little cloudy in New York, but it's beautiful. I'm glad to
Oh
be
yeah,
alive.
absolutely. Did y'all have any rain?
We just had a couple of no rain.
Okay. Wow. So, I know, you're kind of not really strapped for time, but you got a lot of things going on today. So, what do you have to show us this morning?
Oh, so this morning I said that I was going to start out in my bedroom so that I can show everybody the home hemodialysis machine and, just talk a little bit about the parts and how easy it is to operate. So if you give me a moment, I'm going to turn my camera around and we should be able to see it.
Okay.
Okay, so this is the machine. The top piece is the cycler. That's what cleans the blood. And you see, I have a saline bag hanging there. So I'm just about set up for treatment for later on tonight. And you see, the interface of it is just a couple of buttons. So it's nothing like what you have at the dialysis center, Steve, that I'm sure that you're used to using. We have five buttons on here. We have the alarm button, stop, go, and rinse back. And this is the button for you to get your stats. And that's pretty much all that's on here. It's so simple to operate. Everything is color coded. If you take a look at the lines, all the lines come sterile because everything is a closed circuit. So if you take a look at the lines here, everything is color coded. So it's easy to hook up. Green goes with green, yellow goes with yellow, red goes with red, and you get a fresh dialyzer every time. It comes in a package. And here on the bottom is the water treatment system. So down here is where your water comes from the sink and it goes into this tub. Here you go, that's 60 liters of water and it goes into the tub and it comes from the sink and it turns into sterile dialysate. So this is what I use for one treatment. I use 60 liters of dialysate. And my treatment is, I'm a nocturnal patient, so my treatment is 6 hours and 44 minutes, 4 days, every other day, literally. Now, when you travel, you use this part up here. This is your warming tray, and you put the already bagged dialysate up here, and you hang it from these hooks here. So you hang your bags because you can't test for chloramines and all of that from foreign water. So they send you the premixed dialysate.
Okay.
So it's pretty simple. You have any questions for me?
Absolutely. Do you cannulate your own self?
Yes, I do. I go back and forth. I do have a catheter, but I also cannulate myself. It all depends on what's going on because, as you know, I've been 27 years on dialysis, and my vascular system is not that great. So sometimes my graph goes down very often because of my vascular system. And if I have a hard time cannulating or my graph goes down, I use the catheter. And especially since I'm doing a nocturnal right now, the catheter is much easier as far as me sleeping, as far as me sleeping while I'm doing treatment.
Okay. So let me ask you this.
Mm-hmm.
If your blood pressure dropped or something was to happen, do you have somebody on like right next to you to intervene? What
Well,
would happen?
my mom is right in the next room, but this next stage machine is made differently from the big machines in the facility. I do a 300 blood flow, so my blood pressure doesn't drop during treatment. You stay pretty much the same because it's not pumping the same way as an in-center machine.
Oh,
So
okay.
very rarely you'll get a drastic drop in blood pressure. You can see it you may be able to see it gradually going down if you're sitting up and awake. When I'm sleeping, it doesn't change at all.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
And so if you were to have any issues with cramping or
No
anything
issue,
like
no
that,
cramping.
okay,
You don't cramp.
but if you did, you would just open the saline line yourself and give your own self
Right.
fluid.
That's correct. That's correct. Take a look at this. Here's your saline bag. And down here is your white plant. You keep this near you so that you just open that up and you run your saline in. You give yourself, you know how to measure. So you give yourself 100, 200, whatever you feel you need, and clamp it off. And you keep your treatment running. However, one of the pluses of home hemodialysis is that you don't get cramps because it's a much slower, gentler treatment,
Okay.
and taking off fluid more often because you're doing your treatments more often. So you're not trying to pull 3, 4, 5 kilos in one treatment. What you're
Got you.
doing, they do 1.5 kilos, per treatment
Okay.
because you're treating more often.
Okay. So two questions. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
the first one is, do you are you laying down or sitting up when you're doing your treatment?
I'm sleeping. I'm snoring, Steve.
Okay, if
I'm
you're
in a. I'm
sleeping,
in a. Uh-huh.
how do you know when the treatment is completed? Does it make a sound? Does it cut itself off?
Yes, the machine alarms and it wakes me up, and I disconnect. And if I'm going back to sleep, I go back to sleep. If I'm going to work, I go to work.
Okay.
Whatever I'm gonna do, I go about my day. And I don't have that sluggish, dry, that dry feeling or that sluggishness. You don't have that because the system is so gentle.
Got
And
you.
actually, this system is recommended for people with cardiac issues because it actually helps to repair the um the 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 hypertrophy that we get from the big machines pumping on our heart so hard.
Got you. Got you.
Left ventricular hypertrophy.
Okay. And the second question I wanted to ask you, you mentioned that you take off 1.5 liters per treatment. Um, so if you do that, what about the fluid that you're drinking after treatment? So do you basically what I'm trying to say, do you have a plus like so you take off 1.5, but you're not going to gain that 1.5 back. Like, okay,
Well,
okay. I guess if you're taking off 3 liters, if you need to take off
right,
3 liters, you're not going to
right.
do that in one treatment. You're going to do that over 3 treatments or 2 treatments.
No, you can do it the way that it works for you. Either you can take off the whole three, or you can take off 2.5 and save a half and add that half to your next treatment. My issue as far as fluid retention is that on Thursday we talked about the issues with my colon cancer. So since
Got
I
you.
don't have a colon, um, and the way that I excrete waste is in a fluid form. So I let go of a lot of fluid. So I never gain in between treatments. So I'm not fluid restricted at all.
Got you. Got you.
Yeah, that's just my specific situation.
Got you. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, wow, we got to take a look at your machine. I appreciate you sharing that with us because maybe you may have some people who may want to do home dialysis, and by them seeing the machine to show them, it's not a hard thing to do.
No, it's not. It's not a hard thing to do. And, it's really important that we educate patients on all of the treatment options. You don't really learn too much about your treatment options in center unless you ask. And
Right.
that, and sometimes once you get out of the chair, you're ready to go. You don't want to ask anything.
Right.
But when you have an opportunity to learn about something different, this fits so well into my lifestyle, Steve. When I want to travel, this machine goes in a box, and I leave it at the gate at check-in, and I don't see it again until I get where I'm going. So I travel with this machine, and I do my same gentle treatment. I don't have to wait for them to assign me a spot in a dialysis facility. One time I went on vacation and they gave me a 5 o'clock in the morning spot. And I'm not a morning person. So I was not a happy camper.
I'm sure. I'm sure.
And I'm on vacation. I got to get up 3 o'clock in the morning to get ready to go to treatment. And so I was not happy about that. And then I didn't feel good when I got off the machine. So that whole day was kind of wasted. Yes, correct. Because it was the in-center short dialysis. So that treatment is really hard on me, and that's why I went home so many years ago.
How long you been doing home dialysis?
Oh my goodness, I've been doing home dialysis for 19 of my 27 years.
Wait a minute, you've been doing home dialysis for 19 years?
Yes, I did PD for 10 years. Then I got the transplant for 6 years. And then after the transplant failed, I went to home hemodialysis.
Okay.
So I've done everything that they have available for us right now.
Wow. Wow.
And you know what it is, Steve? It's all about what works for your life at that particular time. Some people may need to be in center for a certain amount of time because they because that's what they need. But then as you grow or as you change, you may feel you want to be a little bit more independent and try PD. And PD is the easiest of all.
You said PD?
Yes.
Yeah.
I never seen anything easier to do.
Yeah, we had a guest on last week, Tawana Jones-Ray from Patterson, Louisiana. She had a transplant, but she was on PD as well, and she enjoyed it.
I loved it.
She said it was right in her room. She was able to wash up and take a shower while she was connected.
That's correct.
Yeah. So
I used to iron, and if I could have made it to my kitchen, I would cook. And they give you loads of extension lines so you can walk around the house. If I didn't have the colon cancer episode, I would have gone back to PD. However, I have found out, looking at the data, that the adequacy is so much better from home hemodialysis until doing these dialysis treatments more often and cleaning that blood out, you feel so much more normal. So it all depends on what you're looking for. If you want a nice, gentle treatment that's easy to do, then you may want peritoneal dialysis. But if you want some real good dialysis that's cleaning up that blood, and if you have a problem with your fluid intake, or if you want to eat different, you want to eat more foods on the no list, or if you want to take less medications, then you need to do home hemodialysis.
Okay, so let me ask you this. What would you say to the person who was presented with this option, but they said, that's not for me, or I'd rather come in instant and let y'all do the work, but that has some skeptic about it, but really in the back of their mind, they would love to do it, but they're just sitting on the fence thinking that they can't do it. What would you suggest to those people who probably want to do it, but have some hesitation?
Reservation.
Yes.
Yeah. You know what? I come in contact with people like that every day as I work with patients as a next stage patient advocate. And the first thing that I tell a patient when they tell me, no, that's not for me, and I ask them why. And they say, oh, I don't want to stick myself. Well, how do you know that you can't do it if you never tried? You know, so that goes for the whole gamut of home therapy. You don't know what you can do unless you try. And what we've done is we've developed a sense of dependency in the dialysis center. We act like we're sick because we're treated like we're sick, and we're told that we're sick, you know, and we're told that we can't do our own treatment, and we're told that it's too hard for us, or you'll get an infection, or we're told all of those things, so we don't want to try.
Wow.
But you know, if you want to live longer and you want to feel that sense of empowerment, you know, trying to do your own dialysis is the best thing you can do for yourself. And hey, if you don't like it, go back in center. You can get your spot back.
Right, right.
You know, it's not like you got to stay on it forever. If you don't like it, you say, hey, I don't like this. I'd rather go back in center and go back.
Wow, wow, absolutely. I agree with you.
Yeah, we need that. We need to be independent. It
Let me,
makes you feel better.
I'm sure, I'm sure. How many people since working for Next Stage have you recruited for home dialysis?
Oh, now, I haven't kept count. That would be a good thing for me to do once in a while to keep count. But I usually, when I go to visit a facility, we usually get 1 to 2 patients to make the change. And for us, that's phenomenal because the data on home dialysis is discouraging, Steve. There's about 90% of dialysis patients dialyze in center. 8% of the dialysis patients dialyze at home. Let me see. 8% of of dialysis patients use PD, peritoneal dialysis, and only
Okay.
2% use home hemodialysis. So
Wow.
that is really that's disheartening to know that there are options available that our patients aren't using. And might I also add that patients that do their own treatments at home tend to be healthier, so they tend to get a kidney transplant faster. I've
Okay.
seen the data on that as well. They're healthier because they're doing their treatments more often.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Well,
they call
question
you
about that.
transplant fast. I'm sorry?
No, quick question about the transplant since you brought that up.
Yes.
Um, do you send your own tubing to the transplant coordinator
Yes, you
when you're on
do.
home dialysis, or you had to go into the center and get your blood drawn and they send it
No.
off?
When you're on home hemo, you do absolutely everything yourself. You draw your own labs. You send it out to wherever it goes for processing. You check your chloramines. You don't have to disinfect the machine. You wipe it off with a Clorox towel because
Mm-hmm.
everything is on a closed circuit. But you do absolutely everything yourself.
All right. So with the when you do your own lab work, do they have a procedure for patients to draw their labs, like turn your blood flow rate down to this rate and then draw, um, the blood out?
Yeah, yes, we have procedure. Once you terminate treatment and you connect from your you let your blood flow for 5 minutes, and once you disconnect your arterial line, then you draw your blood.
Got you.
So
Got you.
it's simple.
Right. I understand. Okay. So let's move on to the good part of the transplant journey that led you here today. Um, what year did you actually get your transplant? Your
I got
first
my
kidney transplant?
I got my first kidney transplant in 1993, and everyone, please pardon me because I'm moving. But I got my first transplant in 1993, and that was after 10 years of since I found out I had kidney disease. And I got the transplant in 1993, and I kept it until 2010. So that was a total of 6 years.
Okay. And how did it reject?
Uh, my kidney transplant just it had I had many small rejections during the course of my transplant journey, and so I was going. I'm sorry, I'm in the dark. I'm gonna run. Um,
That's okay.
I was going for plasmapheresis treatments. Plasmapheresis treatments are what you get to stop rejection. It's medication where they remove your white blood cells and your platelets and everything, and they with white blood cells and platelets that don't reject the organ. So that's one of the things that they do when you reject. Another one of the medications that they use, and I couldn't remember it Thursday night, but it's called Solumedrol, and that's a form of
Steroid.
medication like there you go, like prednisone, steroids, and that medication is hard on your body, but it will stop that kidney from rejecting.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that
So after
I was going to ask you with
go
that
ahead.
plasmapheresis, they don't offer that to everyone because I never heard any of the patients I know that were um, in that process, offered plasmapheresis.
Well, it all depends on what your needs are. I'm getting in the car. Sorry. It
Sure, we
all
understand.
it all depends on what your needs are as far as your rejection is concerned. Um, if you have a rejection that they can just treat with solumedrol and the infusion treatment, you'll just get that. But when you have a really heavy rejection, or what you call um, an aggressive rejection, then they'll give you that plasmapheresis. And I had that 3 times during my transplant experience.
Wow. So your first transplant, you say, lasted 6 years?
That's correct. I only had one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So what was it about that particular episode that has well, I know you shared about the medication,
Yes.
but is that the main thing that um, is a medication that has you not back on the transplant list?
The side effects of the medication is the reason why I haven't gone back on the transplant list. It was very harsh on my body. And again, I'll explain like I did Thursday night for those of us who weren't here Thursday night. There was one medication that I was taking called Cellcept, Cellcept, and that medication caused cause malignancies. And it can cause malignancies. That's one of the side effects. If you read the fine print, it'll let you know that it can cause cancers. For the most part, in kidney transplant patients, you get
Gone? Okay, it seems like we got a
a
frozen reset. Okay, there we go.
the second medication is called um, a Prograf, Prograf, and oh, I'm sorry, I switched them around. That's the medication that causes the malignancies and can cause cancer. Cellcept causes stomach problems, called irritable bowel syndrome. It causes diarrhea. And this is not just regular diarrhea where you go get some Imodium and it goes away. This is diarrhea that's painful that can cause hospitalization. And I had that so many times until I developed colitis. And colitis is inflammation of the colon. And with me taking the Prograf and the Cellcept together, the inflammation of the colon and the medication that can cause malignancies, I developed colon cancer. They caught it in the very early stages before it turned into cancer. But as a result, I had a series of polyps in my colon that had developed, and they had to remove my colon.
Wow, your entire colon.
The entire colon. So I have something called an ileostomy, and that's where your small intestine, instead of everybody else, extends out of my belly.
You kind of breaking up, Don. There you go.
It's better. Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so what happens is my small intestine extends outside of my belly, and I have to wear an appliance in order to in order to um have appreciation.
Okay.
So I don't go like everybody else. Mine just comes out when it wants to, and it goes into a bag.
Wow. Wow. And
Yeah.
this was as a result of the medication?
That's correct. One medication caused the colitis, and then the other medication caused the cancer because of one problem just made another problem worse, and we didn't know about that beforehand. I wasn't even aware of the side effects, to tell you the truth. I wasn't aware of any of the side effects. Back in 2003, we weren't talking about things like that. You just hurry up and jumped on the table and got the kidney transplant. So now that I know better, I want to tell people about it so that they can be aware of what could happen. And
right.
and do your homework.
Right.
Also, Also with that prednisone, you have to be careful with that and get your bone density tests because I didn't get that done, and I have renal bone disease, which caused me to have a hip fracture where I needed a hip replacement.
Wow. And this was from the prednisone?
That's correct, for taking it for an extended period of time. Not from the prednisone, but for taking it for an extended period of time.
Got you. Got you.
And again, I just want to say this does not have to happen to everyone. This is my experience, and this is what happened to me. I have plenty of friends who are doing extremely well with their transplants, and then I have other friends who aren't here anymore. So you have to be aware that there are good and bad in everything. The same thing with dialysis. We have some people who are doing well on dialysis, and then we have some people that have passed on. You have to look at it that way.
Right. Do you know anyone else who had a transplant that experienced the same complications you did from the medication?
No, most of the people that I know that had transplant issues, I'm sorry to say, have passed on. But I would like to do like what we talked about Thursday night. I would like to reach out to patients that have rejected and develop some kind of little support group, because when you reject and you go back into the dialysis, really of the conversation. Nobody wants to know what happened, because everybody's interested in getting a transplant, of course. And there's no support and there are no resources for people who, have lost the transplant. And
Well,
that's a shame.
let me ask you, just in your opinion, why do you think why you think that is not any information or lack of information for people who rejected their transplant and ended back on dialysis? Because I know a young lady, not personally, but I know her through a friend that had a transplant for 15 years, and she recently had a rejection and started back on dialysis. And she thinks it may had to do, she was developing kidney stones, and she thinks that the procedure to eradicate the kidney stones may have had something to do with the rejection.
It's a possibility. I mean, you just never know, Steve. We're just so wonderfully made. But back to what you asked me about the support, I think that it's just something that we've forgotten to address. There's a whole population of people out here that have lost kidney transplants. They've been doing kidney transplants since the 60s or 70s, if I'm not mistaken. So think about that. That's over 40 years of people that have lost transplants. And this is a population of people that have been overlooked. And I believe it's because dialysis facilities aren't prepared to provide mental health resources to people. And transplant centers are busy working up patients who are going to get transplants. So There's no in between. There's no place for us to go. I had to seek out mental health resources on my own. And I was extremely depressed because I felt like it was my fault that I lost a kidney, or if I had done this, or if I had done that. If I hadn't got this transplant altogether, I wouldn't be going through all this. Because I have to tell you, on Thursday, when I went back in center, my immune system was so suppressed that I got MRSA. And that was a really serious episode for my family. They thought they were going to lose me. It took them over a month to find the medication that would help me.
Mm-hmm.
So
Wow.
it was a very serious time for my family. We thought that I wasn't going to make it, and all of these are just end results of the immunosuppression. So
Right.
going back to dialysis, when you're immunosuppressed, with a catheter is like double jeopardy
Absolutely.
because you're so susceptible to um, to bacteria and infection, even more so than the patients that are already insensitive.
Right. Now, Don,
Yes.
doing doing your advocacy and all that you're doing, have you have you seen any of the transplant hospitals um, give data on their rejection or their failed transplant rate?
Let me tell you this: if that kidney rejects less than 3 years after they put it in, they may have data for that. I have not specifically looked into this, but it is something that I plan to do. But after your 3 years is over, you're no longer considered disabled,
But you
and
still have kidney
the
disease,
transplant.
though, right?
Yeah, technically you still have kidney disease, but but CMS doesn't see it that way. If you still have that working kidney transplant and it's 3 years, you're no longer to the Medicare system
Mm-hmm.
because you're considered to be rehabilitated unless you have another underlying disease that that prohibits you from going back into the workforce or what have you. If you have cancer or if you have rheumatoid arthritis, something that makes you dually eligible for Medicare. But
Okay.
other than that, they don't keep track of transplant patients afterwards because transplant patients, if your kidney's working well, you go off and you go about your business. And if it rejects, you know, you go back to dialysis. So I'm sure that there's some data somewhere out there. Um,
Right.
and I'm gonna find it.
Right. Now, explain to our audience um, the transplant medication by Medicare. How does that work?
Okay, when you first get your transplant, you have 3 years in which to rehabilitate. And that means that you, even if you have a rejection episode or anything, you're still covered under the Medicare system. But once that 3 years elapses, they consider you rehabilitated and no longer disabled, and they expect you to go back into the workforce. It's just as simple as that, Steve. You got 3 years.
Wow.
Yep,
Wow.
that's the long and short of it. It's no drawn out explanation. You got 3 years, period.
So, Don, let me just read a comment that we got from Rimsha Chahari. I hope I
Yes.
pronounced your name right. Um, she says, or he, I had two kidney transplants. First one worked 7 months, and the second one worked 1.5 years. So now I'm
Wow.
back. So now I'm back on dialysis again. I was on plasmapheresis too after
Yep.
the transplant, and I was on the same medication like CellCept, prednisone, etc. After the
Yes.
transplant, I have a lot of hospitalizations because of infections, etc.
Yes.
Is this common?
Steve, I would have to say it probably is because remember, we took a lot of anti-rejection meds, and those anti-rejection meds, they suppress your immune system. And even after the transplant is over and you're not taking medications anymore, you can still have complications as a result of those medications. I developed the first thing that I got from taking prednisone was my face swelled up, and I haven't been able to get that swelling down and since 2003. You
Wow.
know, my face is still swollen.
Now, do they use the same medications for kidney transplant as well with like uh, lung transplant or heart transplant? Are the same medication used or different ones, or do you know?
I would imagine it would be a combination of some of the same medications. I believe that Prograf is a general organ transplant rejection medication. So, if I'm not mistaken, Prograf is used for a great deal of transplants. I'm not sure about the cell steps, but I would imagine that too. That medications the indication is to prevent organ rejection.
Hmm.
But if you take a look at the paperwork on the inside, it says it also causes renal failure.
Mm.
So how do you like that? What are we doing
What?
here?
Prograf?
Correct.
Wait a minute. So what you're saying is the same medication that's used to help your rejection is the same medication that can cause your rejection.
Correct. Correct.
Wow. I
And
didn't know
if
that.
anybody out there has any cell set bottles or has any of the medication, take a look at that medication and text Steve and let him know that I'm telling the truth because it sounds absolutely unbelievable. But this is what we have right now. And until the FDA approves some new transplant medications, this is all that we have. And that's why I haven't gone back on the transplant list.
So you're saying Prograf can cause renal failure. This
Correct.
again, the same medication. I mean, I'm going to check that out. I don't discredit you. I definitely trust your sources and know that you're right. But I just want to look at that
Yeah,
myself
yeah,
because I didn't
please,
know that.
please look it up. Do like I said, do your homework and look at that fine print on those inside those bottles, not just what's written on the bottle, but you got to look at that small print. And one of the
Right.
side effects of the anti-rejection meds is can cause renal failure.
But do they ever tell you that at the transplant office when they give you those medications?
Not in 2003, and that's the last time I was there. So now I don't know what I don't think that they're telling patients about these side effects because they're so uncommon. However, it can happen. So they need to be aware of what can happen. And
Wow.
if you don't read about it, you're not going to know.
Right. And we had Tawana Jones Ray, who was our guest last week.
Yes.
God bless her. Thank you for coming on the show, Tawana. But her comment was, "Oh my God, my transplant team did not put me on the prednisone. Thank God. I did take the medication in 2006 when I was first diagnosed."
Right. And if you're taking it for a short period of time, your side effects will be minimal. You have the hand shaking. You get like the quivers, sort of like Parkinson's. Sometimes your face will swell up. You'll have an exorbitant appetite. So some of those things you can deal with.
Hmm.
But when you're taking it for an extended period of time, like I took it for the entire 6 years. And by the time I was done, my hip was so fractured until I could barely walk.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
it was
So
completely deteriorated. And it's still going on. I have renal bone disease, and it's still going on. My shoulder's breaking down as we speak.
what can you do to counteract that?
Nothing. You can't build up. You can take those bone builder medications. but you can only take them for a certain amount of time, and then you have to go off of them altogether. So I had my run with the bone building medications, and now I just take my regular vitamin D's and my calcium, and I pray for the best. But there's nothing that can be done about bone that is breaking down. You can either get operations and get new joints, or you can deal with it. So I got a
Okay.
hip already. I really don't think I'm going for a shoulder.
Right. So Don, so tell us, have you met anyone that was that had a transplant and was on Medicare and got cut off with a medication that caused the transplant to reject?
I know some people who have had that problem, and they're embarrassed to talk about it. But that happens to a lot of people. That medication is extremely expensive. It costs thousands of dollars. And if you don't let somebody know that you need help after your 3 years is up, there are programs that you can go into, that some people can go into if you qualify, that will help you pay for those transplant meds. You have to check with your state health insurance programs to see if you can get some help. But I know people personally who have lost their transplant because they could not afford the medication,
Wow.
and they are so embarrassed to tell anyone.
So are they back on dialysis?
Yes,
Wow.
and they're not seeking another transplant because again, here's the same problem exists. If you don't find a job in that 3 years, and a lot of times you can't get picked up from the health insurance because you have a pre-existing condition. I know the laws state that they're not supposed to do that anymore, but jobs are doing that. If you have a pre-existing condition, you won't get picked up for health insurance. Then you're still in the same boat. Who's going to pay for that medication?
Right. Right. Madonna Schaefer said that the transplant medication is about $5,000.
Look at that. And it all depends on what you're on. Because remember, I told you on Thursday I had that CMV virus and I had to take a medication called Valsite. And that medication is thousands of dollars.
Now, did you get that CMV virus from the transplant?
I got it from my donor, yes.
So basically, you're saying that you had a high risk kidney?
No, I did not. I had a fresh kidney from a healthy medical student, and she got an aneurysm and she died instantly. So that kidney wasn't laying around. It was not compromised. CMV is not something that's tested for when they test a kidney to find out if it's high risk or not. That's not
So,
considered a high risk category.
okay, okay. Wow.
But nonetheless, the CMV virus was another reason for my upset stomach because CMV virus causes colitis. So I just had it going on with my stomach from all different angles. So it was inevitable for me to get, to get those early stages of cancer.
Right, right. Wow. So have you met anyone that went through the same situation as you during your time?
No, I have not met anyone that has contracted the CMV virus. I haven't met any. I'm sure people have bone disease that have come back from a transplant episode. I'm sure plenty of us have bone disease because of the prednisone and the solumedrol that you have to take during the rejection episodes. But I don't know anyone that's been through the ringer like I have. But I'm sure they're out there, Steve, and I have to, I have to start looking for them so that we can provide some support.
Right.
Because even if your kidney rejected, If your kidney rejected yesterday or 10 years ago, you're still hurting about it.
Are you still hurting?
Yes, I am. Because if I had, there's two things. Um, if I had never taken it at all and I'd stayed on peritoneal dialysis, I would probably be healthier than I was. Then I say, if I didn't go for the chance, I wouldn't have had the 6 years that I did have. And 6 years off dialysis extends your lifespan a great deal. So I would tell everyone, don't miss out on a chance to get off dialysis for however long it is. Never, just go for it.
Right,
With
right,
Go with your gut.
right. But would you say go for it, but do your research and check
Exactly.
everything out?
You check everything out, make your decision. You talk to your family and your support team, whoever you have for a support team. Go to your pastor. I used to talk to my pastor about some things. I talk to my sister and my daughter a lot. My daughter works in dialysis now. So I talk to them a lot about things before I do things. And just weigh your options.
Now,
That's the only way you can make a decision.
now, is your daughter in dialysis because of you being affiliated with dialysis, or just something she decided to do?
I was surprised. My daughter wasn't quite sure what she wanted to do. And I came back from being in the hospital with MRSA, and she told me, she says, "Ma, I think I want to go to dialysis tech training." And she went and took the course. And after she took the course and got her certificate and everything, she got an opportunity to work in the administrative part in the office. And she loved it. And she said she'd rather do that than to work in patient care because she didn't want to hurt the patients. She knew she was helping them. She knew it hurt them to put the needles in. And she didn't want to do that. So now she's working in the administrative role.
Ah,
So
interesting.
yeah, no, it was all of the watching mommy go to the hospital, watching mommy get sick. She grew up. I started dialysis when she was 3 years old. So
Wow.
she's seen this her whole life. That's all she knows.
And that reminds me of Tamika Smallwood that we talked about on Thursday, who
Oh,
submitted
yes.
that paper, honorable mention, because her son, she started young at 23, and her son, that's
Right,
all he's seen you know, his life. So maybe
right.
he may end up working in medicine as well.
You never know. When that's all that you know and that's all that you see, sometimes it shines a light on you. And it makes you, interested in helping people. I want to help people that were like my mom. And my daughter gets attached to the patients in the unit, and she comes home hurt when they pass away.
Oh, trust me, I know all too often, and
Yeah,
and yeah, it went. Yeah, I don't even want to talk about it because when I do hear that, or if something happens in a unit that requires us to do CPR or
yes.
code, it is definitely frustrating and exhausting.
I can only
Seems like we
imagine.
lost Dawn. Um, Hopefully she'll be back, and when she do, I'll tune her back in. We're getting kind of close to the end of the show, but I just wanted let our audience know that I'm down here in Henrico, Virginia. Did the kidney disease urban America silent killer tour at Antioch Baptist Church yesterday, which I
Wow,
believe was a success. Um,
wonderful.
Down here in Henrico, Virginia, Richmond, Virginia is just like any urban city across America. they have their quote quote food deserts. They had their
Yes.
convenience stores. They had their Dollar Generals. Um, Lack of supermarkets. You
Yes.
have your big Walmarts. But the one thing that I realized coming down here and just looking around while I was down here is that there are more churches, more funeral homes than there are
Yes.
supermarkets down here.
Oh, yes.
And that's probably like that in Baltimore City as well, which I didn't think about. But down here, you would think that kidney disease would be less than the urban city because here we're out in the suburbs. You know, people have a lot of land; they can grow their own fruits and vegetables,
Right.
and it's the same as Baltimore urban city when you got people who have high blood pressure, who have diabetes, who have artery diseases, kidney disease. So this is a national problem that
Yes,
needs
it
to be
is.
addressed. There needs to be more awareness, especially um, national
Right.
awareness,
Yes.
but there's
It's an
not.
epidemic.
So it looks like that we are not going to get Dawn back. She didn't pop back on. So
Am I off,
um,
Steve?
again, the tour so far, I believe, is
Almost.
a success. We're still looking for places uh, to have this tour. Right now, we don't have anything planned of yet. So hopefully, if anybody's watching and they were like, kidney disease, Urban America Silent Killer Tour, to come to your organization or where you're at to do a kidney disease awareness presentation. It's not just us standing up and talking, but there's an interesting slideshow as well and some good information out there that I think is pertinent for people to know about. So I was hoping. Oh, you can still hear Dawn. I'm sorry. Let me go back.
Yes. I guess we lost our signal for a minute. I'm so sorry.
I
But
can't hear
I heard you. I heard
I
everything you
can't
said
hear
about the
Dawn, but
tour.
I'll be silent for a moment.
Yeah, I heard everything that you said about the tour, and I think it's a wonderful thing that you're doing,
Okay.
trying to spread that word about, kidney disease awareness,
Dawn, I'm not
diabetes.
sure if you can hear me
Of what?
or
Again?
I can't hear you.
You can't hear me at all? Oh, I'm sorry. Gee. Can you hear me, Steve?
I lost my guess. Okay, so I'm not sure what happened with Dawn, but if I'm talking over, I'm sorry, Don, but it's 12:05. I can't see you on my screen. I don't want to have dead space. So what we're going to do. I apologize. Not sure what happened with that connection where how I lost Dawn and couldn't hear, but you guys can still hear. So I want to thank everyone for tuning in, listen to our show with Don P. Morman-Edwards, transplant warrior. I'm sorry, kidney warrior, and patient advocate. Next week, we're going to have a great show. We're going to have Alexander Barrios out of Kentucky, and he definitely has an amazing story that you would definitely want to hear. So until next week, thank y'all guys for tuning in. This is Sunday Morning Transplant Talk, and we'll talk to you next week. Thanks a lot.